So brutal Cornate cavalry confirmed. Let's take a look at a big angry Chaos Lord riding on the back of a Juggernaut. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today we're talking about Games Workshop's Warhammer Day previews, and there has been a little bit shown off for the new World Eaters, though I must admit pickings were kind of slim for them on the day. I think people wouldn't have minded if they showed off another squad or two, but I must admit a great big Chaos Lord riding a Juggernaut into battle certainly screams World Eaters, and it's pretty awesome to see a new interpretation of a classic miniature. The model that they showed off during the stream was this Lord Invocatus miniature, essentially a World Eater's Lord on a Juggernaut steed of Khorne, and all parts of it looking very ornate indeed. I do quite like the paint scheme that they've done it in as well. Glowing runes on the Juggernaut look pretty awesome to me. It seems that this guy is a new HQ commander choice for the upcoming World Eaters, who will be coming out sometime during winter, though at the moment it does look like they're almost certainly going to be after the Imperial Guard Codex and not before, given all the reveals that we just saw earlier in the day. World Eaters are likely to have a pretty extensive range, so realistically if they were coming first, then they would have shown off more of their range in this preview, and they wouldn't have shown us loads and loads of new units for the Imperial Guard. It does pretty much mean that any joint box set for Guard vs World Eaters isn't happening either. The Guard will get their own box set. To be honest, I guess that the World Eaters will almost certainly get their own army launch set as well. That seems to be the way that Games Workshop does these things these days. In any case, on the stream they did confirm that this guy is basically an HQ choice for the new World Eaters army, though we're just maybe a little bit unclear as to whether or not this guy constitutes a unique special character or generic build. If I had to guess, then I suspect that you might be able to build both a generic World Eaters Lord on a Juggernaut and this Lord Invocatus, who I believe will probably be a special character for the World Eaters. I think the people on the stream were genuinely a little bit unsure about that, but it sounds like from the previous fluff that they've mentioned that Lord Invocatus is an individual character within 40k. There's been some lore about him smashing up a Deathwatch watch fortress in the past, and I guess that implies that Lord Invocatus is an individual, rather than being a more generic thing like, say, a Lord Discordant for Chaos Space Marines. Model-wise, I do think it looks pretty darn epic, to be honest. The Juggernaut of Khorne maybe doesn't seem too enormously different from, say, ones that you might see in Chaos Demons, or some of the various Age of Sigmar units that they've released. Perhaps the most notably different thing is that great big chain blade that he's got mounted at the front of him. World Eaters do like to make everything chain-bladed, to be honest, and it looks like this Juggernaut guy is no exception. I imagine it must be pretty frustrating having a big chainsaw mounted to your nose, must make you pretty angry, but I guess perpetual rage is kind of the state of existence for Khorne things. They did say that the model has a fair amount of different options they haven't revealed in this particular preview. I wouldn't be too surprised if you could swap out that chainsaw head for something slightly different, if you wanted a bit more of a traditional Juggernaut look, and I guess if you wanted to take mercy on your poor beast of Khorne. Otherwise though, I think there's a good sense of motion about the model. Definitely looks like it's hurtling towards the fray with that axe slung back, ready to slap someone pretty hard in the face. His helm's pretty cool as well, I think. Very much a demonic fused head, and as with quite a lot of World Eaters, they don't seem to be too keen on actually protecting themselves from the horrors of war. He's eschewed his standard shoulder pauldrons and armoured arms to have some bare arms. I guess all the better for freely wielding your axes to carve up blood for the Blood God. In the stream they did mention that he might look quite good leading a whole load of demonic allies. You could ally Flesh Hounds and Blood Crushers pretty easily into the army now with that demonic pact rule. I could imagine that he'd look pretty good at the helm of a whole load of Blood Crusher mounted demons. I think it was pretty interesting though that they did mention that he'd have some further allies to lead into battle, which I know is kind of obvious given that we know that World Eaters are coming in a big way. But if he's actually going to be leading things into battle, they'd kind of need to be demonic cavalry to keep up. I feel that there's a pretty high chance of getting a more generic World Eaters elites mounted on cavalry models very similar to this. Again, I do feel like it might be a bit of a missed opportunity if they didn't make this a dual unique character and generic character kit, maybe similar to the Orc one with the Beast Boss on the Squigosaur and then the unique character Mosrog Scragbad. I can't really imagine them revisiting the character on Juggernaut idea anytime massively soon, so it would feel like a bit of a wasted opportunity if they didn't make a generic one as well as special character Invocatus guy. It does seem likely if they're talking about build options though. Mostly special characters tend to have just one set of build options, maybe a variant head or something. So I think that there's some cause to be positive and optimistic on that front. Price-wise, perhaps one of the most obvious close equivalents could be the Primaris Chaplain on Bike, a similar size model with some really cool details. He was £30, $50 or €40, so it seems pretty plausible that this guy will be somewhere along those lines. Always the chance for Games Workshop to be raising things up a little bit though with recent inflation. I'd expect somewhere between this and the Beast Boss on Squigosaur kit for the Orcs. That seems kind of plausible for HQ characters that they charge a little bit more for. One fun detail that they mentioned on the stream was that this guy's a bit of a throwback to a previous model in 40k. In the past, in Codex Chaos Space Marines, you could have your Chaos Lords mounted on various steeds. You could have things like Palanquins of Lurgle or Discs of Tzeentch. Khorne got their Juggernauts, and this was one model that represented that. Very much a retro and old school model compared with Games Workshop's current range. Looks a bit cute really. But the new one does feel like a much more fitting and nice resculpt of an old classic model. I do really quite like the way that, as well as keeping at least some of the broad themes the same, they've also even redone him in the same sort of paint scheme as this old one had. I think that's really quite a fun touch. A red armoured guy riding a rather sinister looking black Juggernaut of Khorne, with a good amount of brass and chains and things going on in true Khornate style. Finally, they did also show a quick preview video of him, from which we get a few other cool angles on the same miniature. Again, I feel like the preview video does really highlight just what a nice paint job they did there. It takes some real skill to make those runes look like they're glowing quite so effectively like that. Object source lighting, but not done over the top. I suspect that I'd probably just need to go for the standard brassy effect if I was doing that myself. I certainly wouldn't have much hope of replicating that with good success. Otherwise, we get a bit of a better look with the axe and his backpack and things in the second picture, plus the Khorne Juggernaut's cute little tail. It certainly does seem to be a good boy in service of Khorne. The axe looks pretty dangerous. I feel like World Eaters players are probably going to be spoilt for choice with the sheer amount of different chain axes they're going to be able to field in this new codex. Between this guy and the Berserkers, there's a fair few skulls on show as well, victories of previous battles I guess, plus some ragged chainmail hanging from under the Juggernaut's armour. Again, that seems to be a bit of a recurrent theme, tying multiple models from the new World Eaters range together. So anyway, let me know what you think of the new model then, and let me know what other things you'd like to see from the World Eaters range in Games Workshop's next set of previews. At some stage we're going to get those new cultists that we saw some blurry shots of, hopefully some new Terminators maybe, I've no doubt a few more cool special characters, maybe some Mutilators perhaps. Khornate Cavalry certainly would be really quite cool though, would be pretty awesome for this guy leading a few of them into battle. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where I'll certainly keep up with any news or updates on the World Eaters front. Looking forward to taking a look at the new models as they come out, and I'll certainly review the codex in full once we get it. Finally, if you've been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that links down in the video description if you're interested. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, an absolutely massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.